show, where we discuss and actively explore paranormal phenomena. I am your host, Keith Johnson, the co-founder of New England Anomalies Research. Please join me as we take a trip to the Assembly Theater in Harrisville, Rhode Island for highlights from the 2016 Ocean State Paracon. We'll see excerpts from a lecture given by Demonologist Carl Johnson, as well as a Q&A session with members of the Perron family. Of course, they are of the Conjuring fame, and that was a case which my brother Carl and I and our friend Donna had the opportunity to work on back in the 1970s, and on which we were later joined by Ed and Lorraine Warren. So, let's take a trip out to Harrisville, Rhode Island for highlights from the 2016 Ocean State Paracon.
And that actually started my brother and I on the road to demonology, because it seemed every case to which we were alerted had some sinister quality to it. And then I one time heard myself referred to as a demonologist. And I said, I'll buy that. Sounds good. Yeah, okay, I'm a demonologist. So I don't mind it, yeah. But Donna can confirm that there were strange things happening there. I mean, you couldn't go, I don't think there were 20 minutes where you didn't hear some bump or hear something. I know my brother was in one of the girls' rooms, and we were all gathered in there. There was one room, do you remember this, Donna? There was a window that wouldn't close. It was August, and yet it was, the other rooms were sweltering, and that room was cold. No air conditioner going on in that, but it was cold. I tried to close that window that was halfway shut, kind of stuck, and I couldn't get it to budge. Well, my brother tried an experiment. He recited a psalm from the book of Psalms, the Bible. And as he was saying that, you heard this slapping sound like that. One of the girls, I'm not sure which one it wasn't Andrea, but she had 3 welts on her face from that. You hear a slapping sound, and the window slams shut. It's things like that are almost commonplace. Now, there's far too much of this going on to be coincidence. We're talking about like anything from ufology, seeing strange lights, strange crafts even in the sky, seeing ghosts. There are places you can go where you're almost guaranteed to see a ghost. There's no place where it's really guaranteed. I mean, you can go to the most haunted bed and breakfast or castle in Great Britain. There's no guarantee you're going to see something, but you're increasing the odds that you will. If you stay overnight at the Lizzie Borden House, it's quite possible. In Fall River, Massachusetts, quite possible you'll see something.
I guess my great-grandmother absolutely hated it. So here I am.
But you kept it, nonetheless.
She did. My mom has never been one to anyone tell her no.
Don't look right into the camera, look off to the side.
Where's Ryan going?
Hey there, boyos and ghouls. You are watching Ghosts Are Near, right here on cable access. The only spot where you can catch the best man in the paranormal research, Keith, and the best woman, Sandra. Good evening to you all. Annabelle, no!
Okay, the question is that she understands that hauntings of this nature can be quite traumatic for a family, and how did we overcome it? To tell you the truth, and I'll let Mom and Nancy speak to this as well, because I'm sure they have different perspectives than I do. But in that respect, The Conjuring did get it right, because it, even though our story didn't end with everybody huddled on the porch, or out on the front lawn, all hugging and kissing, big kumbaya moment. It really was a kumbaya moment for 10 years, because it was our true love and devotion to each other as a family, and especially our sisterhood, our very important sisterhood. I'm the eldest, Nancy is second, Christine, Cindy, and April in that order. And we supported and loved each other. We kept our own counsel. My sisters came to me first with their experiences. I later shared them with my mother, who shared them with my father. It was a process. It was a process of embracing the experience, which took years for us to understand that what was really happening to our family was nothing short of miraculous. And for all the dark moments, there was true light that emerged from the depth of the darkness of the experience that we had at the farm. And I think that the reason why we're all whole and happy and healthy is because we learned the importance of embracing the fear and understanding that we were sharing that house and that they were there first. And respect for the dead is incredibly important. And it was in acknowledging them and appreciating them that the negative and energy ceased in the house for the most part. It was hard to leave the farm, and I'm going to let Nancy speak to that because Nancy had the most profound experience in terms of leaving the farm. She refused to leave when my mother and father sold it, and the whole family was moving to Georgia right after I graduated from college. And instead, belligerent Nancy over here goes to the abutting landowners who bought the house and said, I'll stay on as your caretaker. And that was it. She refused to leave the farm. And so we moved without her. And for all intents and purposes, it fractured our family because half of us never wanted to leave, and that would include Dad and myself, and the rest, and Nancy. We were the ones that wanted to stay. And the rest of our family never wanted to look back. And so it was an interesting shredding, emotional shredding that went on in terms of leaving the farm. So I want Nancy to talk about that because it was really intense at the time. Microphone.
I don't know what to say.
Just
Hi.
she's shy.
Yeah, I guess I could be accused of not wanting to leave the farm. There was so much that went on in that farm. Some days we were just so happy and so elated to have such a wonderful and privileged life. We had horses, we had animals, we had a lake that we could go down and get on the boat and just go rowing and exploring for hours and hours. And it was very, very hard for me to leave the farm despite all that was going on. One day we would just be so happy and so elated, and then another day we would be shocked and horrified at what went on. But overall, like Annie said, there was horrifying times, but there were times when you were just so happy there. And it was like a dream come true to have a home where you could have your horses and you could go fishing when you wanted to in your own backyard. And those of you who know the area know that little round top pond was right down the street from us. And every year they would stock it with rainbow trout, and the rainbow trout would go up the river, and I'd go in the backyard and catch them.
Fishing derby many times.
Many times, I don't know how many reels and rods I won at that event. I loved it. It was my life. I had close, dear friends. In fact, one of them was here today. Friends that we've had since we were young children. And that's why I wanted to stay.
Dad, you want to talk to it? Honey, just
Yeah, well, really, I didn't want to leave either, but we were forced to. I was threatened with a divorce or sell the farm because my wife could not live there any longer. She went through hell. It was very difficult. But right now I'd like to apologize for last year when I got so angry on the stage about what was happening. So if any of you were here last year, I apologize for getting angry that much at a certain person that was sitting in the audience trying to create a problem. But that problem, I think, is about finished. So I'll just forget about it now. I hope you accept my apology and we'll let it go at that. Thank you so much. Thank you. Yeah, living in that farm was something that very few people on this earth would ever have the privilege of doing. Yeah, we had animals. The kids had ponies and horses and pigs and cows and rabbits and dogs and cats and ducks and so forth. Yeah, I mean, I said pigs.
There was a partridge in a pear tree too. There was, no, really.
It was phenomenal. Oh yeah, the kids got hurt once in a while. Nancy fell off the pony and hurt herself. Cindy fell off the pony. I had to take her to the hospital. She broke her arm and so on. And so yeah, there were accidents, but for the most part, they were extremely happy. We played softball in the back. We played, and it was just a wonderful thing. I treated my girls like they were tomboys, and they could handle anything. And oh yeah, without a doubt. Cindy would go down fishing in the creek and catch a rainbow trout and bring it back to the house and say, "Daddy, here's your dinner." Right? And then Nancy would do it the next time and come up, "Here's your dinner, Daddy." And it was just great. And I loved it as well. I wasn't around as much as the kids were because I had to work on the road. The Conjuring said I was a truck driver. That's not true. I had my own business. I was in the jewelry business, and I did travel and try to support the family on that basis. But I could talk forever about how we lived there and the things that we went through. And the kids would be so happy that I was coming home. I remember one night it was snowing like hell, and I was coming back from Rochester, New York. And I came down the New York Thruway, and I fought my way down the road and then on the Mass Pike. And then I had a car hit me on the Mass Pike, but he didn't create any damage, so I kept going. And then when I got home, I didn't know what to do. I was going through at least 1.5 feet of snow plowing my way, right? Yeah, well, anyway.
Sorry, we were just kind of making fun of my dad when he brought up.
Yeah, well, Andrea could probably tell it better, but I got to the barn and I jammed the car right off the road in front of the barn. And the kids were so angry because they had plowed the driveway for me. And I didn't use it because I didn't see it. But that's all right. And I got in the house, they all attacked me, and first thing you know, all 6 of us were rolling on the rug because the kids were so happy to see me home. So
We had to dig him out of the car first.
We didn't mean to be talking amongst ourselves, but when he brought up the fact of Cindy falling off the horse and breaking her arm, he neglected to mention that he was halfway down Round Top Road before he realized she wasn't in the car to go to the hospital.
He was a little bit panicked that his daughter was hurt. No, that blizzard, that wasn't even the blizzard of '78. That was just your normal, average, everyday blizzard.
I'm in trouble.
Rhode Island. And we were sitting out there, and we were big cartoon kids. We loved our cartoons, you know, the Looney Tunes and all of that. And Christine, particularly, she's so funny. And Mom put a snow shovel in each one of our hands. Dad called from New York. He says, "I'm coming in." She's like, "You're insane." And he said, "I'm coming home." And so she's like, girls, go in the woodshed, get the shovels. And anybody that's been by the farm knows it's pretty deep from the road into the opening of the barn. And what we wanted to do was completely clear it. There was already at least 2 feet of snow on the ground. And so that we could open up the front so he could put the car in the barn. It seemed logical. And he drove right past it, and we're standing there. And Christine, she's so funny, she's like, "It was a blizzard all the way, but we had to get that theorem through." And Snagglepuss. And all of a sudden, we see a car that we vaguely recognize. The only car on Round Top Road in the middle of a blizzard. And there's Dad. And he suddenly turns his head and looks at us like, "I just screwed up."
And so did I.
And he cut the wheel hard, and he went into what was a circular driveway at the time. And it took us about 20 minutes to dig him out of the car. He went directly into a snowdrift. One of our many. But you know what? It was House of Darkness, House of Light. And I guess more to your question, We got through it because it was life. It was maybe more unusual life than most people have, but there were many lighthearted, very many happy moments for us at the farm as a family. And there seemed to be a kind of balance with that. And even though there were horrific things that happened from time to time, overall, we were a very happy family living at the farm. We had many, many friends in the neighborhood, in the town. We had a lot of people that came to visit us regularly who weren't afraid or were actually so curious that they would hope that something would happen while they were there. And were disappointed if it didn't. Excuse me, so I guess there were, there's a line that I use repeatedly in the trilogy called, Childhood Trauma, the gift that keeps on giving. But I do want to make mention of that because that is a very poignant question that you asked. And it wasn't until I was writing the trilogy that I realized who was really traumatized at that house, and it was Christine. And I lived with her at the time, with my mother and my sister Christine in Villa Rica, Georgia. I lived with them for 7 years for the time that it took me to write all 3 books. And it got to a point where I was so frustrated and on the verge of angry because Christine would not be forthcoming with the experiences that she had in the house. Now, we slept about 4 feet apart from each other, back to side bedrooms. We lived together 24/7. I tried and tried to elicit some details from her. And I finally got to the point where I said, I just throw my hands up in the air. I mean, she just will not cooperate. And she knew I was writing the books, and she knew that I was writing it as a collective memoir, which would include the recollections of everyone in the family. And I got really frustrated one evening and called Cindy, who only lived 2 miles down the road. And I said, I give up. Other than the stories that involved Christine that happened with others in the family, so she's represented at least in the trilogy. I give up trying to get her to tell what really happened to her in that house personally, any one-on-one in the bubble moments that she had that we weren't aware of already. And Cindy said, I'm coming right over. And she drove at light speed, apparently, up the road and pulled into the yard, walked right past me in the kitchen, went into Christine's bedroom, closed the door, and I hung around the kitchen. I wanted to hear what was about to happen. And Cindy said, Annie needs to include your stories in the book. Everyone else has been forthcoming. Nancy has told everything to her. April has told her everything. Dad, Mom, everyone has told her everything. It's going to be incomplete if you don't. And she grabbed Cindy by the shoulders and shook her violently and screamed in her face, why did she come to me? Why did she come to me? And started to sob. And that's when I knew Chris was, she'll never get over it. She'll never get over it.
She still won't talk about what happened to her?
To her rabbits. She won't talk about, there's many things. Les Anderson, my producer, has interviewed her, and she cuts him dead when he starts getting into problematic territory for her emotionally. She has buried her dead so deeply that she doesn't want to exhume them. And I acquiesced. I said, I'll just, basically write you out of it. I asked everybody in the family to write an essay to include in volume 3. I think the most poignant part of the entire trilogy. It took me 1.5 years to get 3 pages out of her. But one night, she came out into the parlor where I was working on the desktop, and it was quite late. And she said, I'm going to do this. I'm going to do this once. Never again. She said, sit down, start typing. And my fingers flew across that keyboard for about 3.5 hours. And she told me everything. And then she said, that's it. No more, never again. And she took her dog and went to bed. And we can all be grateful for that, because what Christine shared that went into that series of books will change your life forever when you hear what she experienced at that farm. Julie, come up here and take this in your hands and tell people your experience, your first-hand experience. Julie DeMay, folks, my close personal friend, member of Rise Up Paranormal.
I definitely didn't expect to do this.
I love you, darling.
Rise Up Paranormal came into the house. We were able to investigate it. I guess it was 5-6 years ago. And it was really awesome. The property's wonderful. Everything Annie talks about with the yard and the little water in the back. It's awesome. I love the place. It's a beautiful house. And we investigated it with Ken, just a few of us in Rise Up. We only had a very small window of time to investigate. It was about, I'd say at least 100 degrees in the house, because Norma turned off the AC just so we didn't have any noise. And the one session we actually had two things happen. Is Ken in the room somewhere? Maybe he's not. We had two things happen. He was sitting in one of the bedrooms by himself, had a camcorder. He was sweating profusely because it was so hot. And I come into the room and he looked a little whiter than normal. And I said, what happened? He goes, someone just screamed, hey, in my ear and scared the crap out of me. And there was nobody else up on the second floor. The other thing that happened, we had finished one of our sessions, and I was coming down the stairs, and Paranormal Hunting 101, you don't put your hand over your voice recorder because it sounds like a windstorm. But at least during the portion when I was walking down the stairs, we had a little child say, hide me, find me. And I found it very surprising. There was nobody in the house. I was probably one of the youngest, and probably about 45 in there. Definitely was not me. And when Annie first came to the paint house several years ago, I said, can you listen to this? Does this make any sense to you? And she just nodded her head, which really shocked me. I mean, especially knowing there is no other evidence ever on file right now from that house. All the evidence that was captured when Ed and Lorraine Warren were there and the Johnsons, all that data, any evidence was destroyed. So this is the only thing that we have. So Annie, you tell the story, and I said, what does find me, hide me mean anything to you?
Well, the thing that kind of blew Ken and Julie and the team away was I walked over, Ken had his laptop open, and he's like, just listen to this. And I looked at him, and then I looked over at Julie, and I said, I know that voice. And that was stunning. There are other contacts that I have had last year and the year before with George in Spirit Box sessions at Bathsheba's gravestone. We got disembodied voices of her screaming her own name. The year before, I think it's on George's website, Port Orange Paranormal Society. Please check that out. He's got a number of clips from Bathsheba's gravestone right here in town. But what you captured at the house that night, and also what Jason and Grant and Johnny Zaffis captured for Ghost Hunters, is very compelling evidence. I mean, they were only in that house for a few hours. We lived there for 10 years. So if Rise Up and Ghost Hunters caught what they did in a few hours, can you just imagine what it was like living there? It was nonstop excitement, pretty much.
Well, I think the funny thing was, tell me what you understood with that audio. When you heard it, tell them that it was very familiar and why.
Well, it was very familiar because, well, you mean about us playing hide and seek in the house? Yes. Yes. It was one of the reasons that we stopped playing hide and seek in the house, and I want Nancy to talk about that too. She had a very compelling experience, but was because when we'd go up into the eaves to hide from each other, we heard children talking to us that had been hiding in the eaves for eternity. And April met her little friend, Oliver Richardson, in the eaves off of the chimney room on the second floor between the first and second bedrooms. But Nancy, talk about your experience too, about behind the chimney.
When we would play hide and seek, I was probably more competitive than any of my sisters. What?
Yeah.
Yeah. So I wasn't gonna be found. So I would go up into the morning room, and I'm very skinny, so I could slide behind the chimney, between the chimney and the wall. And I would often do that, and every time I would go up there, I would be hiding behind there, and suddenly it would become very, very cold, and I could smell, you know, if you leave hamburger in the refrigerator a day or two too long, you get that rancid smell. But I stuck it out. I stayed there until I was not caught, you know. You got used to it after a while.
Oh, by the way, for the record, since this is being filmed, The Conjuring having me flirting with a paranormal investigator, no can do, okay? I might have had my head buried in a book when they were there. This is the one, right here. Flirt.
Oh, I don't know. That Keith Johnson was awful damn cute.
If it was male, it was, that was it. She was paying attention. So yes, that's another mischaracterization in the movie. Yeah, well, yes, we did. We played hide and seek a lot. Was there something else that I had told you that I'm not remembering right now to add to that?
You're just saying that my sister used to play hide and seek with that child.
Yeah, that's it. Okay, excellent. Okay, thanks.
Thank you so much for watching. Be sure to join us for part 2 of highlights from the 2016 Ocean State Paracon on an upcoming episode of Ghosts Are Near. I am your host, Keith Johnson.
Just forget about it.